We've just been hearing from Jurgen Klopp at the AXA Training Ground ahead of Liverpool's game against Aston Villa, the fourth Premier League game of the season. It's been a decent start so far, but they need to keep building on that ahead of the first international break. Now, of course, the first thing that Jurgen Klopp was asked about in his press conference previewing this game was nothing to do with the game itself. It is, of course, transfer deadline day. So he was asked about the inevitable transfers that Liverpool are engaged in going into these final hours of the window. Now, of course, we know that Ryan Gravenberch landed on Merseyside earlier today ahead of completing his move from Bayern Munich. Jurgen Klopp was, of course, asked about where that signing is up to and when we could expect an announcement around that. But he was pretty coy on this one. Didn't want to give anything away. He said he apologised for disappointing the journalists who were assembled there, but said he didn't really want to talk about this one yet. You can kind of understand that approach after he spoke about Moises Caicedo so openly when Liverpool had agreed a fee with Brighton, and then of course the Ecuadorian ended up at Chelsea, so he didn't want to talk about Gravenberch yet, but we know that the wheels are in motion in terms of completing that transfer, and that one should hopefully be announced today ahead of the transfer deadline. Now, of course, there is the possibility that Liverpool could make further signings beyond Gravenberch. We know that throughout the window they've been looking at defensive options. It's been described as not necessarily a need as far as Liverpool are concerned, but something that would be nice to have in terms of adding a young defender who's got the ability to play maybe on the left-hand side of that defence and maybe push out to left-back a little bit. That is something Liverpool have been looking for, and we have seen some names linked. In terms of possibly ruling that out, I possibly expected going into this press conference that maybe Jurgen Klopp would say no further signings are possible, because it's been so quiet around those defensive names, so few links coming out and no real noise around Liverpool really pushing on any of those options. But he said this, he said, "It's deadline day, so I don't want to kill the excitement. You never know, but I'm busy with other things today." So Jurgen Klopp not ruling out that further signing. Maybe we do see Liverpool push for a defender that we all know that all supporters would really like to see that defence strengthened and feel that like the squad was complete if Liverpool did do that. But Jurgen Klopp not ruling it out as well. So maybe some possibilities, some late drama in this window. We'll have to see. It would be a huge boost, I think, for Liverpool to get in that defender. I think that is the one area of the squad you would say has been left with a real weakness if they don't get that over the line. So let's see what happens in the next few hours in terms of whether Jurgen Klopp is just over-promising there or suggesting something that's not quite there, or whether Liverpool actually do get something over the line. Of course, that's not the only transfers, or incomings are not the only transfers that are being talked about around Liverpool at the moment. There is all that noise around Mohamed Salah and his potential move away to the Saudi Pro League. Al Ittihad absolutely desperate to get him in the final days of their window. Obviously, their window goes on a little bit longer than the English deadline, but if Liverpool were to sell him after today, they wouldn't be able to get a replacement in. Now, there's talk of a €200 million bid being prepared by Al Ittihad, much bigger than the 150 that was being touted previously. So they're making a real concerted push to get Mohamed Salah in before the deadline if they can. Now, Jurgen Klopp is, of course, he said after the game against Newcastle that he considered this matter closed. We've heard from Salah's agent before, who said that Mohamed Salah wouldn't have signed the contract if he didn't intend on staying at Liverpool. So, but all the noise has been coming from the Saudi side in terms of the possibility of a huge bid coming in that would maybe blow Liverpool out of the water, a bid that they couldn't turn down. But as far as Jurgen Klopp's concerned, there's been no change on this situation. He said nothing has changed from his perspective. The situation is exactly as it was, that Liverpool don't want to sell, and that as far as he is aware, there's been no offer from the Saudi side yet in terms of coming in for Mohamed Salah. So this situation is staying as it is, really. I think there's a crucial few hours ahead and a crucial few days ahead before that Saudi window finally shuts, and I'm sure we'll hear the noise ramping up before then. But from Jurgen Klopp's perspective, the player is not for sale, and I think you've got to say he's a man who would like to stick to his word on this one, and I think generally does do. It would be so unwise for Liverpool to lose Salah at this point in the window, particularly as they wouldn't be able to replace him after today. So we'll have to see how this one pans out, but I really wouldn't expect Jurgen Klopp to be wrong on this one. He's saying publicly today that there's no change in the situation, so we'll have to see how that goes. Now, of course, there was some actual talk in the press conference around the match. Doesn't always happen when it's transfer season, but we did actually talk about the game and some team news to give you ahead of that game against Aston Villa. Now, some good news first up. In midfield, Curtis Jones is back in full training. He had that little setback, didn't he, injury that ruined the start of his season, really. But he is back in training now and should be available to face Aston Villa. Not probably one where he comes straight into the starting lineup, because obviously we know Liverpool have done a lot of business in that midfield and there's real competition for places in there at the moment. But to have him back in the squad will make the bench look a lot better, that's for sure, and hopefully he can get some minutes, maybe help Liverpool see out the game against Aston Villa. Some not as good news in other parts of the pitch. Thiago Alcantara, we did expect that he would be back in full training by now. Him and Stefan Bajcetic were supposed to be back in training at a similar time after both undergoing surgery at the back end of last season, but unfortunately he suffered what Jurgen Klopp described as a little setback, and so not back in training. The expectation is that it's not going to keep him out too much longer. He should be back after the upcoming international break, so that would be a really big boost to get him back then. But yeah, a little bit disappointing that we're not going to be seeing Thiago Alcantara coming into the squad against Aston Villa. And another injury as well to talk about, Ibrahima Konate. We already knew about this one. Jurgen Klopp had already previously revealed that he had a muscle injury that's going to keep him out, but just confirmation today that he won't be available to face Aston Villa. And again, he's one, like Thiago, who should be back after the international break. Now, in terms of general talk around Villa, Jurgen Klopp saying that this is going to be a difficult game. Aston Villa are absolutely flying, aren't they, since Unai Emery came in, and Jurgen Klopp really recognised that in speaking about them, spoke very highly about the job that's being done there and the team that Unai Emery has put together. And he said that we will need Anfield, they will need the backing of the supporters for this game to get the win over the line, because they know it's going to be a really, really tough one. And so, you know, it could be a really, really good start to the season, this for Liverpool. They've already got 7 points. They move on to 10 going into that international break. Then you say that they were really, really well set up for a successful season, but Jurgen Klopp acknowledging that it's going to be a tough one. We'll have to see how it goes for Liverpool this weekend. I will, of course, be at Anfield bringing you coverage on YouTube as well, and some post-match thoughts as well, hopefully of another win for Liverpool. But please do like and subscribe so you can keep across that, and I'll see you soon.